Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? #Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Osayome Sale, and today, Gloria and I flying solo. Hi. So you decided to take on my black.
Yes,
How
yes,
are you?
yes. I'm fine. How
How
are
was your week? We've not seen
this
this
week?
week.
Yeah, this week has been so busy, productive, and money here and there, but it's been so busy.
When they are making money, they will not let us know so that they will not share the money. God is watching you in 8D.
He should watch over me, please. I need it.
But how are you? How's the week been?
The week has been quite productive. Lots of things dealing with employees and everything, and finance. And we're talking about tax today, also tax issues here and there. Having friends who run businesses calling me for their tax situation. So like it's just been a lot, but above all, very productive. And yeah, I'm
So
here.
you deal with a lot of businesses, right? Especially when it comes to small businesses. How conscious are we of, taxes? Do we really pay attention?
Yes, so many businesses pay attention, but they are actually scared. And one of the biggest questions I've gotten over time is like, why should we pay taxes? We don't see it. We don't see the
The
effect in the
impact.
economy. Yeah, so why should we pay taxes? So it's a lot convincing businesses how important it is.
Hmm. Wow. All right, so today we want to discuss navigating taxations for small and medium scale businesses, right? And here's what we found as today's quote. It says, the art of taxation consists in so plucking the goose as to obtain the largest amount of feathers with the least possible amount of hissing. This matter is serious. Jean Baptiste Colbert said that. Now, SMEs are the backbone of the Nigerian economy. In case you did not know, now you know. Driving innovation, creating jobs, and fostering economic growth. However, navigating the complex tax landscape can be a daunting task for many business owners, from understanding various tax obligations to leveraging available incentives. The challenges and opportunities are vast. So tonight we have an expert with us who will shed more light on these critical issues and provide valuable insight to help SMEs thrive amidst these complexities. And also later would actually pull up would I call it a mini documentary that one of us, Mary, did, just, to discuss the issue further to help us have like clarity and the impact. But we'll do all of that first. Let's go on a break. When we come back from that break, we want to see what we found in today's news. Thanks for staying with us now. World Food Safety Day, celebrated annually on the 7th of June, highlights the importance of safe food practices to ensure public health and well-being. In Nigeria, this day underscores the critical need to address widespread food safety. Of course, safety challenges including contamination, improper handling, and inadequate regulatory enforcement, despite efforts by the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, that's NAFDAC, to control standard issues also, such as foodborne illness and adulterated product persist, exacerbated by informal markets and limited consumer awareness. So strengthening food security or food safety measures, enhancing regulatory frameworks, and educating the public are essential steps for Nigerians to safeguard its food supply and protect the health of its citizens. This matter of food safety, that was why.
We're talking about it, I think, the
Yeah.
last time, about preservation and all of that. I feel like the more we are talking about food, it's like people are devising various, like I said,
Deadly.
deadly means of
Preserving.
preserving. Preserving. It's like people, a lot of people don't care the impact or the implication of their actions. They don't, I don't know if they ask or they even think about it. We're talking about like, is it stockfish, how most of this, even beans, is preserved and all of it.
I mean, when I saw that video, and I believe that this is me calling out the company Sniper. They actually have to come out to do a thorough sensitization. Like they have to spend money to create awareness videos, you understand, to tell people, because I don't understand how people have been able to relate that with food that we consume, because the video was someone, showing a guy in the market that was preserving stockfish using that particular chemical, right? And we've heard several times where the same chemical has been used to preserve beans and all of that, just to ward off the weeds, weevils and all of that. So, I mean, they have to come out to put out a disclaimer, do a lot of awareness, do sensitizations and all of that. It's very important because, again, Dora Queenly of blessed memory, she did a great job, with NAFDAC, but I see a lot of struggles, right? People are so not conscious of what we consume, right? We're just, anything
we
goes.
We are surviving by God's grace.
I'm
so
telling you,
sort of
anything
things.
goes.
And if you say, if people are not really this aware, how far can you go to protect yourself? Will you start cultivating your own food?
It is almost getting there.
So,
it's almost getting there because, again, if you see the handling, because this part they talked about improper handling. Have you seen the handling of fruits, vegetables, and all those perishables, at that, is it Mile 12 or Mile 2 market now? I'm not sure which of them. The one, if you see the way they handle those things, you would not want to eat. Or if you go to the Kara market where they cut. So literally, I've not visited a market in a very long time. Because I think I'm just traumatized when I see the way food is being handled, So it's really, really scary. And not to now talk about people that are using really, really hard chemicals to say they are preserving whatever it is that they're preserving. I've heard that even frozen chicken, at some point, they were using the same chemical that was used to preserve dead bodies, to preserve frozen chicken. So we've heard all sorts of things. And we have to, we have to be intentional about the kind of laws that the kind of measures to protect ourselves as people. I mean, speaking to this topic is your what's in the news, actually.
What's in the news? This one is guilty as charged. So it says WHO said foods exposed to temperatures above 5 degrees centigrade for over 2 hours can become unsafe to eat. The health organization gave this warning on Friday in a series of messages posted on X in commemoration of the 2024 World Food Safety Day. Team Food Safety, prepare for the unexpected.
You see the comment I wrote on your WhatsApp. I say I'm laughing in Spanish. Is it this Nigeria that we do not have light? Did you hear did you read the story that Uti had posted on the group about how people were using a certain combination of chemicals to freeze water so that you can get frozen water? So I just said ice water on the roads. So I was now saying to people that be intentional about not buying anything in traffic, because these people, the complaint was there was no light. So instead of now not being able to sell, because they cannot sell their water if it is not cold, right? So instead of instead of standing the risk of not being able to sell the water, they have devised a chemical, different chemicals to freeze this water. Not even minding how this thing is going to impact on the consumers.
I'm so afraid of what, the next 5 to 10 years. You see it rise in cancer, so many terminal diseases. These are just the causes of that. I mean, now they're saying, even 2 days. We've not survived. They said 2 hours. We'll not survive. God is going to help us because...
2 hours. The whole of today, the light has not blinked. The whole of today. And you're talking about 2 hours. So I have 2 quick stories I wanted to touch on. First, if they can pull out the video for Ogun State, Dapo Abiodun, some guys in that resident area, they were calling out the governor. This thing, I am tired. Literally, I'm tired. How do we, in this present age and time, right, experience things like this with the amount of technology at our disposal? And I hear that this particular road, from the video, that this particular road is a federal road, right? So whatever it is, I feel like Ogun State is one of the most wealthiest states in Nigeria. So even if the governor is going to go back to tackle the federal government to refund their money, why don't you just fix this road? The amount of damage. I always say this, and I'll keep on saying it until it is driven home, the point. The amount of things that it costs us is because we do not know how to measure. Now, the amount, the livelihoods, the loss of, what's it called, income, loss of revenue, loss of everything that would have happened just by what's it called, the fact that this road is flooded, you cannot quantify it.
Is it this rain that fell that just...
It is the rain that fell. It is the rain that fell. And when I saw this, I was really horrified.
And we're not even deep into the rainy season yet.
Do you get what I'm saying? It's just starting. So clearly there is a problem. Why do we have problem of road in this country? Why? It's sad. So I just thought to mention it. Ogun State is too wealthy. Almost all the manufacturing plants, almost all of them, they are situated in Ogun State. So we do not have, I mean, even for economic reasons, that state has to be functional. You must have connecting rail lines. You must have good road networks so that people can actually, if there were good things, you know, good road network, and it's cheaper. Accommodation is cheaper in Ogun State. I'll go and live in Ogun State and work in Lagos.
It's really surprising because I know I did my NYC at Agbara. So knowing that after all these years, the roads are still like this.
You're talking about NYC. When I went for one program in Ota in 2005, look at where we are. Almost how many years later? 20 years later.
It's so shameful.
It's very shameful. Very shameful. All right, so my second story quickly, because Mercy had touched on the story of I think it was the newly constructed bridge in the Niger. Now, what's the name of that bridge? So I thought to mention this because this was my argument about the government have to be intentional about protecting properties, because you already know that when it comes to public properties, especially roads and all those metal railings and all of that, people always go to steal. You understand? They go to vandalize some of these government properties. So this story speaks to a young man that was apprehended by the operatives of the Lagos Rapid Response Squad on Friday. Guess what? He was removing the LED lights. See the guy's picture there. I don't know why they blurred this picture. We need to see him so that, you know, anywhere we see, in case they release him, we'll keep on flogging him. Right? So this boy, Abubakar Abdullahi, he's 18. That is the claim, but I don't believe he's 18. Right? He's living in the Makoko area of Lagos State. He was apprehended. And he had, at the time he was apprehended, he already removed 10 LED road stud lights. Now, he was caught red-handed by the operatives around 10 a.m. 10 a.m. So it was not even in the middle of the night. What audacity, right? So this is why I say that the government really needs to play a role in protecting some of our public infrastructure. Then when Nigerians now get to that point, because again, yes, a lot of poverty is tied to some of these actions. Mm-hmm. But when Nigerians get to that point, then they can slowly ease off that manning those kinds of public infrastructure, because we will continue to have vandals as long as there's hunger in the land. But we have to be intentional about protecting it. All right, so we'll take a break now. When we come back from that break, let's discuss taxation and again how small businesses can navigate their way through taxation. Stay with us. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future.
Yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you. right, so thanks for staying with us. Now, SMEs, as we already know, are essential drivers of economic development, yet they often find themselves entangled in the complexities of tax system. All right, so tonight we have a guest with us, Kenneth Ikenwa. He's a lecturer and a business and social policy analyst. He's going to shed more light on this topic. But before we do that, I want to quickly play us a clip, just to set the tone for the conversation.
In today's challenging economic climate, micro and medium-sized businesses are grappling with the burden of multiple taxation and overlapping government regulations. These challenges pose significant obstacles for businesses that are already struggling to survive, as the operating environment remains hostile and conditions continue to deteriorate. It raises the concern, can the poor even breathe? Fortunately, the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee seem to have found some solution to address these concerns. During a public consultation workshop specifically organized for journalists and analysts, the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee sheds light on the committee's strategic approach to identifying the key issues hindering Nigeria's potential as an investment hub.
The use of data. First, making sure that we identify the problem correctly and using data to analyze what the solution should look like. So nothing is random in what we are recommending. So we think that with those, you have 50% of the problem solved. The remaining 50% is getting the policy approved, the policy implemented, and monitoring the outcome and the impacts.
The prospects for small businesses in the face of numerous tax burdens and stringent economic policies are a matter of concern. The chairman also hints on the discoveries made by the Tax Reform Committee and presents their proposal.
Our analysis shows that about 95% of the small businesses should not have to bear the burden of tax in any form. So the taxes they are paying now, which means they will be relieved of those taxes so they can have the space to continue to do their business, grow. We've had a lot of sessions with the small businesses. You see a small business that's paying more than 10 taxes. The guys who sell pure water are paying 7 taxes every day. That's a lot of burden. If we fix that problem and tomorrow they don't have to pay those 7 taxes, even if it's only 300 naira, that's 300 naira they can use to take care of their family or grow their business.
Key stakeholders were also in attendance as some expressed their opinions on both the event and the Tax Reform Committee's proposal.
The committee has done well. I appreciate the fact that the process has been very inclusive. The consultation has been very widespread and far-reaching. What I think is most important is the political will to implement the outcomes of the reforms. That, for me, I think is a bigger issue. And that is not in the hands of the committee, it's in the hands of the government.
It's a useful first step, right? There are important reductions, for example, in the number of taxes that we pay. Most Nigerian businesses face something like 60 plus taxes. The proposals is for those taxes to be harmonized into 8 taxes. So there's a certain level of predictability and certainty, right, that's baked into the system. There are also proposals around ensuring that the Federal Internal Revenue Service, which will be restyled if all of this gets approved, to be the National Revenue Service, will be the primary collections point. So again, it reduces the amount of uncertainty in terms of which government, federal, state, and local government, right, things should be paid through. There are important proposals around VAT too, in terms of removing VAT from things like food, transportation, healthcare, which comprises a significant amount of spend, not only for individuals, but also for businesses that have to take care of those deductibles on behalf of their individuals. So there are some very useful proposals on the table that this has brought up. The hope is that a lot of this will be approved within the near future.
The effectiveness of the presidential fiscal policy and tax reforms hinges on factors like political determination, economic circumstances, and public backing, despite their well-thought-out plans. Will the plans and the proposal of the committee be adopted and implemented? Or would it be the case of the Universal Basic Education Act of 2004, which, despite its noble intention to enhance education in Nigeria, has not been fully and successfully implemented in providing quality education in schools due to issues like mismanagement and corruption?
Okay, so that was a report from Messi, our very own Messi. Now, thank you so much, Kenneth, for joining us this evening. And how are you doing?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's my pleasure being on Ways this evening and in this year, 2024. Surely will be a beautiful year.
I hope so, and I pray so. So, I mean, you listened to the report from our co-anchor Messi, and also, again, you also saw, I mean, the document that was shared. Just breeze through. There were some things that were mentioned, right? And I would like to just start from that place, right? And it speaks to that data accuracy, or you call it data accuracy, whatever you want to, whatever tickles your fancy. Now, regarding data in Nigeria, how accurate are these figures? Because for 95% of small businesses to be relieved of tax payments, and according to the report, it says that these are the businesses that are earning 25 million or less annually, right? How feasible is that, and how accurate is this data?
All right, thank you for going straight on hitting the nail on the head. I already said that one of the major problems that has to do with taxation in Nigeria is not so much as it borders on corruption or corrupt practices, or the lack of the technical know-how, or the lack of intellectuals and technocrats that can give existing governments solutions and suggestions on how best we can harness the tax capital and increase the ratio of tax to GDP in Nigeria. But I agree and I affirm that one of the major problems over the years has been the problem of data. Now, it's very important that I state categorically here that the issues of data mining, the issues of data management in Nigeria is a highly political issue. It is an issue that has been highly politicized since 1963, when we had the first general census. So when you talk about harnessing the data, when you talk about mining the data, when you talk about the accuracy of the data, it has to also be viewed side by side some principalities and powers, if you may if you excuse my language, that usually would want to use this data for political reasons to influence certain decisions and also to play down certain decisions. So until we come to the table and address the issue of the politicization of data mining and data management, the issue of accuracy may not be properly dealt with. We may not be able to solve that problem. So everybody has talked about data management, data mining, data harnessing, but nobody has focused on the major problem with data in this country, which is why is the issue of data so politicized? And who stands to benefit and who in Nigeria are usually on the losing side? That should be the starting point of on a good conversation when it comes to the accuracy of data with respect to tax management, tax administration, and the general tax system and culture in Nigeria.
Okay. So I would like to know, one of the major feedbacks I've gotten over time when it comes to taxation and SMEs is the issue of trust. So you even find so many SMEs or small startups who are not interested in even registering their business because they know that once it's registered, the next conversation is going to be about tax, and they don't have trust in the Nigerian tax system. So how do you think, how can the government start like building trust within the SME category such that, because I feel like if there's enough trust, then we are able to, the government will be able to bring more businesses within the tax bracket. So how can the government like start dealing with the issue of distrust when it comes to SME and taxation?
Well, very, very particularly, not just with taxation, but our focus on this conversation is actually on taxation. There is a great degree of trust deficit across the nooks and crannies and across different institutions in our country, and we must, come to terms with that fact. But if we have to hit the nail on the head, the first and foremost way by which the government can begin to encourage the people so that we can have a high degree of compliance, which I think is the major focus on your question, is for the government itself and for the people in government, elected officials and other public officials, to actually lead by example. All right. It brings us back to the issue of data, because whilst we must commend the committee that has done this fantastic work on tax review and reforms in Nigeria, and the chairman, which was featured in your report and reportage, it's also important that we state that the same 95% of SMEs that have been referred to, about 70 to 80% of those SMEs are usually domiciled in the informal sector. So the first thing is to even get those people documented in the first place. How do we get them documented? And then we can begin to address the issues of trust deficit. Now, the major factors and variables that are responsible for this trust deficit are not hidden. They are not esoteric. They are visible. The benefits of taxation begins with asking the question, what do I benefit from even paying tax in the first place? Now, in a system whereby people pay taxes and they have to still fund the necessary infrastructure that is needed to run their businesses, how do you encourage such cohorts of individuals or businesses to actually be faithful, or to actually be committed, or to actually come to trust in the government that is promising that with your tax being paid, it improves the economy and improves your own chances of progressing and being more productive in the economy? So I think if I should go straight on and answer that question, we must address the issues of collective benefits that can be derived from actually, complying to tax laws and paying taxes, and let these benefits be tangible, let these benefits be visible, and people will not need, to be cajoled, to be coerced to pay taxes. If they can get the benefits, if they can feel the benefits, and if these benefits actually create a multiplier effect in their different operating environments that enhances their productivity and that will continue to encourage them to remain compliant going forward. So that is the first step. Let us see the benefit, let them be tangible, and then we can start talking about 100% compliance across different sectors.
Absolutely, Ken. And I was just going to allude to that you're spot on with that analysis. You know why? I remember that when Fashola was governor of Lagos State, right, and he did the housing project, it was so easy for people to just wake up by themselves, walk into the bank and just start personal income. These are not people that are like properly structured organizations. They were not working in properly structured organizations. These were businessmen and women, entrepreneurs and all of that. Everybody just started paying taxes. Why? Because we could see that, it only took you to be a taxpayer to get certain benefits within the state. I mean, the Lagos housing estate that he did across, I am one of the beneficiaries, and it was just as a result of the fact that I was just a taxpayer, right? So I get you 100% that this is spot on. If we see the benefit, it is easy for you to then say, you know what, come and let us document you, and let's put something decent, towards taxation. Now, there was something else that one of the persons in that video said about political will. Because again, now you said something, I didn't want to say it, but you said it. So let me help you reemphasize what you said. About I have argued several times that census is not rocket science, right? Us getting our numbers is not rocket science. But as long as politicians always need numbers to be able to kind of like govern or win elections, then it will be difficult if these numbers will not be inflated. So it will be difficult for us to find the accurate data that matches our reality. So now that political will that he mentioned, that these papers, these policies, right, that was nicely put together by the tax committee, where do we find that political will to say, you know what, we want to make sure that we follow through? Because it's not like we do not have some of these policies, beautiful policies on paper, but it's not just, manifesting in reality. So how do we start to drive home issues around political will?
Well, to be sincere and honest, I've lived all my life in Nigeria for, well over 45 years and almost 50 years now. And I can tell you that some particular issues and strategic issues in Nigeria are very, very complex. You can't find textbook answers and you can't find any theoretical answers, to some of these problems as it were. But I would say categorically that with respect to policy implementation in Nigeria, one of the things that we can just start hoping for is a generational transition. It's as though we are stuck with a set of people that are not particularly interested in seeing the holistic development of the country and moving the country forward. Now, with respect to what you alluded to, the politicization of data, you would begin to ask, why are we making advances in the banking sector? Why is Nigeria, at least in Africa, a technological leader when it comes to financial technology, banking systems, trade and commerce, as it were? We have a couple of young boys. Now you now see the idea of what I mean by the generational transition that are, leapfrogging that sector and shooting it to great heights and doing a lot across the world, both in the global south and the global north of the world. But the question is, why can't we deploy the same technology when it comes to mining data that is needed for the determination of policies, the implementation of policies, and also in the management of the same data? So it is an area where we are still experiencing technological obsolescence. It is an area where we're still experiencing and dealing with, albeit not by design, not by default, but by design and intentionality, technological backwardness. So where do we find the wheel? Honestly, I wouldn't tell you that this is one answer that is cast in stone. I am hoping that as we experience and evolve politically and move and shift from different generations to generations, we can actually develop a new paradigm that will help us explore these new opportunities that technology provides, and then deploy these opportunities and these capabilities to all the sectors of our economy, especially for the informal sector and the SME sector, and we can begin to reap the benefit. So if you ask me, the benefit or the political will become germane or will begin to germinate when we begin to experience that gradual shift in generational transition and that gradual shift in the breadth of different paradigms, and in every Nigerian collectively having a say on how best we want to take or rule or see our country being governed. That, for me, I think is where we are right now. And that, for me, I would say, is what is responsible for why we have these major challenges with the tax system and tax administrative structure in Nigeria. The political will come, but it will be gradually and over time.
This way. So what you have just told me that we have to wait a lot longer. Let's go on a short break. When we come back from that break, we continue this very interesting conversation. Stay with us. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having a conversation around navigating taxation for small and medium enterprises, and we have with us Kenneth. He's joined us, Kenneth Ikenwa. He's joined us via Zoom. He's a lecturer and a business and social policy analyst. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join this conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to rate 1-803-846-663. You can also call us on 070250077749. That's the number to call. Send us your messages or call. We'll be happy to read them. All right, so over to you, Glory.
So, Mr. Kenny, I want us to like go through, talk about the issue of double taxation, because again, this is another conversation that keeps coming up when we're talking about taxes. Why do we have?
Sorry, Glory. Let me correct. It's not double. It's multiple.
Yeah, you're right. Multiple taxation. So why in
say
an
that
yeah,
we don't have double taxation, we have multiple taxation in Nigeria.
Why
In fact, multiplex taxation.
Why are we in this situation, especially and it's like this is going to this keeps getting worse. This year alone, from last year, we've seen the introduction of new taxes and all of that. Why do we have to face this, especially given the current state of the economy, given the challenges businesses are facing? And again, this is part of the reason why most businesses or some businesses are really, really evading and avoiding taxes. Why is there just this so many multiple taxation? Why so?
All right. I've always said that you cannot divorce the nature and the culture of a country's economics from the stage of political evolution and the processes of political evolution that that particular country has actually gone through. Now, when you look at the nature of Nigeria and what constitutes the country Nigeria, you will discover that, okay, the kind of political system that we operate, yes, it's a democracy, but the constitution becomes the major melting pot from which we begin to examine all the issues, whether for good or whether for things that are not too ideal, and examine these issues so that we can correct them where possible and make the kind of progress that we ought to have made some 20, 30 years ago. Now, one of the major factors that is responsible for why we have multiple taxations in this country is because of the way and manner that the Constitution has empowered both the federal government and subnationals, and by subnationals I mean states, to collect taxes, from citizens and from corporate citizens in Nigeria. Another reason why we have this problem of multiplex taxation, not just multiple taxation, is the kind of culture that we have in Nigeria. And I do not want to sound too radical, but we must be fair and be honest with ourselves and agree or at least converge on the fact that the culture in Nigeria is very oppressive. And that is why even where people are not supposed to pay taxes, because they want to set themselves free from the fangs of oppression, and also because the people themselves look for a way to cut corners, we become victims of multiple taxation. So if we are going to correct these problems of multiple taxation, we have to start from the basic starting point, and that is the Constitution, and then we look at the culture, and number 3C we need to examine is the character of the Nigerian people. Now let me give you an example. I have a friend that owns a company, or I have somebody that owns a company, not my friend now, who is into the manufacturing of pure water and bottled water. And one individual comes from a tax authority and gives them a tax bill of about 11 million naira. And then at the end of the day, the person says, the manager says, there is no way I can be paying a tax of 11 million. How much do I actually make? And then this tax official says, okay, I can help you reduce it to about 3 million. So you ask yourself the question, where did the first bill come from? And then where did this second bill of 3 million come from? Obviously, and this is a good advice to those that will be documented as SMEs and those that actually operate in SMEs in Nigeria, it is very important for you to have a tax consultant, because it was a tax consultant who was on a retainership that the company called in to look into their books, compare vis-a-vis the over 20 tax laws that exist in Nigeria, and they discovered that all the taxes they actually did owe at whatever level was actually 1.5 million. So it is an issue of the Constitution, the culture, and character. And until we address these 3 C's, I don't know if there will be another word for multiple or multiplex. We will be going into an abyss of taxation, which is one that will affect us, because right now some people are even planning to say, for you to be able to, put certain facilities into your house, you have to pay taxes. I think Nigerians are overtaxed, and I think in some areas we're undertaxed. So we need to look at the structure, and we need to go back to 300 years. What happened 300 years ago? We're going back to Adam Smith. Adam Smith mentioned 4 major canons of taxation. And it is these 4 major canons that you use to evaluate and assess the efficiency of a tax system and a tax structure in Nigeria. And I will come to that as we
No, can you just mention the canon? No, it's good to mention the canon. Mention it. Let us just know the canon.
All right, so when we talk about Adam Smith and we talk about the 4 canons of taxation, the first canon is certainty. Compliance will increase in Nigeria if people are certain that the tax I pay or have paid is actually the tax I will still be paying in terms of rate. And the benefits that have been promised to me are the benefits I will be getting as at when I have paid in view of when I will pay. The second canon of taxation is equity. How many Nigerian billionaires, how many Nigerian entertainers, how many Nigerian millionaires are actually paying taxes on the income they actually do generate? And if there is a system that is responsible for actually collecting the taxes, actually billing Nigerians for taxes, how fair is that system to all Nigerians across the different strata, the different social classes in Nigeria? Now, the third canon of taxation asks the question, is the taxation structure, administration, and system, is it economical and efficient? Now, how do you run a revenue service where you have so many people working in the revenue service, and then you find those people collecting a tax of about 10 billion in a year, and the salaries and the operational costs and other costs that you use to fund that inland revenue service or that taxation body is about 3 billion. So that brings us to the question of efficiency. You can't be spending over 30%, over 40% of a particular amount you have generated to generate that amount. And that is a big problem in Nigeria. Lastly is the canon of convenience. How convenient is it for me as a business individual to pay my tax? And this is where technology comes in. And this is where we must give kudos to the Federal Inland Revenue Service. I'm not speaking for them, and some other states across the country that have stepped up their technology capabilities to be able to collect taxes easily and to document them. But much more than these canons of taxation, if we have to improve the taxation narrative in Nigeria, it has to also be improved on the basis of paying critical strategic attention to the tax governance mechanisms in Nigeria. Now, tax is about demand and supply, all right? So we are supplying the taxes as citizens, and you, the government, is demanding it. How transparent is the government with respect to the taxes that they collect and how these taxes are used? How accountable? Are they accountable to the people? Then they actually give us full disclosure, and is there any form of open book management? Can I appropriate the Freedom of Information Bill, for instance, to ask my state government to tell me what they did with all the income taxes they collected in 2023? The answer is no. We need to put the mechanisms in place, and we need to put back the canons that Adam Smith talked about over 250 years ago. And if I heard that from the chairman of the Tax Reform Committee, I will take him more seriously, and I will know that indeed we're ready for business, and then I will be an apostle of taxation and an apostle of compliance in Nigeria going forward.
Wow. Wow.
I have so many questions.
Okay, I would like to speak first to, you mentioned about, you mentioned technology. Yes, obviously, I will say kudos to the Federal Inland Revenue Service, but also very recently, I've also had feedbacks about system glitches when it comes to filing VAT and other taxes. So if they can also improve on that, I think that's going to go a long way. Then again, I want to speak to you. You talked about the character of Nigerians. But then again, there are so many genuine Nigerians that are open-minded to comply. Even there are so many, I've spoken to some business owners that initially when they started their business, they were very open-minded. They don't want to do the backdoor kind of transaction. They're filing, they're paying taxes and everything. But most times they are met with this officials of the tax officials where they come with this sort of intimidation. They are very intimidated when it comes to like processing tax or maybe giving tax liability. It's almost always like a situation of let's negotiate. So they give out this tax liability highly, highly inflated that sometimes you're left with no option, like either you're scared or you're negotiating. So how do we address that, especially for Nigerians that are open-minded and really and truly want to comply with our tax system?
Sorry, Kenneth, before you come in to answer that question, I just wanted to, I think it just ties nicely to the question I was going to ask about. You know, there is an intentionality to frustrate the system, because even with this technology you're talking about, there's an intentionality to frustrate the system so that it can be swindled. I wish a lot of taxes that are being collected right now are actually driven via technology. We'll probably not have a lot of problems that we're having. So tying to Glory's question, right? Now that we know that certain things are in place to intentionally frustrate the system, how do we overcome that? Because I have seen companies that they collect a particular tax from the staff, but they remit a different tax to the government. That one, it was a shocker. Right? When the person resigned from the company and wanted to continue paying his taxes, he went to the tax office and found out that all the 14 years he's been working, it's not the amount that was being remitted that was being deducted. There's a lot of fraud going on within the tax bracket, even for the ones that are even, paying. So how do we solve that problem?
All right, there's also an intentionality by the internet service provider to hinder my responses to this question this evening. But the service providers have to work because this is not a character issue. This is a technical issue. But let's keep the conversation going. Yes, we talk about character, and sometimes we do not want to talk about these things because I can assure you that I know that a lot of people are watching and this is going all over the world. But these issues actually, you find them in even advanced countries. But it seems the Nigerian situation is very peculiar. Okay, so I would want to speak as a consultant now, as a management consultant, particularly to our unit of analysis and sphere of discussion this evening, which is to the SMEs. I think the first thing that we need to do with respect to overcoming the character deficit on the part of tax officials, that try to intimidate Nigerians and try to frustrate Nigerians into their own backyard, backdoor level of compliance, is first and foremost for those business corporate citizens to agree that they want to play it clean, and that's another C, playing it clean. Now, the second thing that I'm going to advise small businesses to have on, so that they can avoid this issue of, being penny wise and pounds foolish, is it's very important that you have a retainership with a lawyer, and also have a retainership with a tax consultant. No matter the level of business, you can always negotiate the rates, okay? Because when these consultants, when they get these retainerships, they can be looking at the power of numbers and actually reduce the rates. I just give an example of a company I heard about who was saved from coughing out about 3 million and excess of about 4 million in what was actually due to the government at both the state and federal level because they had a retainership of a tax consultant. So one of the ways that you can actually, as a corporate citizen, avoid this major constraint and this character deficit on the part of tax administrators and officials with respect to them intimidating you, cajoling you, or coercing you to do the wrong thing in the name in the name of the law, is to have a retainership with tax consultants and also to have a lawyer. It's also important that corporate citizens get some form of tax education. If you go to the major bookshops in Nigeria, you would see books. Unfortunately, I can't stretch my hand to one of my shelves here. I'll have loved to show Nigerians a book. And it's a book that comprises the 22 different tax laws in Nigeria. And one of the things that most corporate citizens seem to have is these books. And I give a very, very simple strategy. When they come into your office and you display this book on your table, that is a first offensive for them to know that, okay, they actually are dealing with somebody that knows what they are actually talking about when it comes to the taxes they have to pay. Now, I'll come to the second question that has to do with the intentional strategy to frustrate the system, even when technology is there. And that has to do with, compliance officers actually doing the negative, doing the diabolic practices in order to frustrate the system. I think it takes two to play. And it boils down to the character and the culture of the citizens involved. If you, as a citizen, has decided to come clean, it will be very hard for anybody to intimidate you. And if you will take our advice on ways tonight to look for a tax consultant, and by the way, I'm not one, so I'm not marketing myself, but I'm telling SMEs and small businesses what they need to do to be able to avoid these problems, and so they can remain virtuous and honest citizens. If they take that advice of having tax consultants, I'm sure most of these incidences that we see where people are really wanting to actually comply would actually abate, they will be ameliorated, and they would reduce going forward. I think that's a sure strategy that viewers should be grateful that at least we're sharing tonight on ways.
Awesome. I mean, I'm really loving this conversation, but please, can you tell me the title of that book? Because I want to put it on my own table as well. So that, when they just come around, we'll put it on the table. But you see, with small businesses, I find it that most times we are always afraid to find, consultants on retainership, right? So I guess maybe that's where certain kinds of understanding should come in, even with these consultants, to understand that there are up and coming businesses and there are businesses that are probably established. So you give because again, any small business that would take off the headache, that would find someone that can take off the headache, they will be glad to do that. When you're filing your taxes abroad, you can't even file taxes abroad without a tax consultant, because the taxes are so complicated, right? They intentionally did it that way so that you employ the services of professionals. So that's why they have a lot of tax consultants that are busy, outside of this country. Now, so I was just going to touch on something. The president had said yesterday quickly that certain kinds of consumption, food consumption, right? Food importers rather, that they were going to take off certain kinds of custom duties, right, from those people, so that it can help to bring down the cost of food and certain, medical supplies. I think those were the two items that I read yesterday in the news. Secondly, within this report, there was a part that said that custom duty would be capped at $800 to 800 naira to $1, right? So these things that, as I said earlier, they are quite, interesting, and if truly being implemented, it will work. But do you think those are the only issues that would really help us when it comes to, because I feel like part of why there's a lot of conversation around taxation is to generate revenue, right? So are these the issues that can help the economy thrive, or we can actually look beyond some of these things that have been mentioned within this document?
Well, I think whatever the president actually did speak to yesterday, and what some of the new policies that have been promoted with respect to taxation, border on a short and quick way with which we can actually fight inflation, especially food inflation and inflation of basic necessities, that Nigerians actually need, at least to be able to maintain a basic standard of living on a daily basis. But honestly, it's much ado about so much, which I think is really unnecessary. I think the major thing that the government needs to do is to look at the tax administration system and the entire structure and redesign it in such a way that leakages and the corruption that has pervaded the system can actually be blocked and can actually be obliterated. The fact is that I am of the personal view that well over 20 to 30%, given the Pareto principle of the taxes that are supposed to be going into the coffers of government, if not much more, are not actually getting into the coffers of government. So it is not whether you single out a particular item. I mean, there are countries where individuals pay income taxes of 40% and also pay sales tax and other taxes. And these countries, I don't want to mention them, I wish my country was that country, are countries that have been rated as the happiest countries on earth. So how can people be paying 40% on 1,000 euros or 2,000 euros, which is 800 pounds, 800 euros, and you still hear that these people are extremely happy? It is because there are no leakages in the system. It is because the healthcare is fixed. It is because there are food stamps. It's because there's welfare. It's because accommodation is there. It's because basic things and other things, electricity, energy, other things that actually consume, you know, the basic income of Nigerians or basic income of people in those countries have actually been taken care of by the government, which is the promise of the benefits that come from taxation instead of the foisting of the burden that comes from taxation. So I think that what the government should do is to take a overhaul of the system, look at these problems of multiplex taxation, I want to call it, and look at the leakages in the system, and look at the oppressive angle to it. Why should the woman selling pure water in the market be asked to pay tax and be given a ticket? One in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one at night. And the people in Abuja cannot pretend to know that, cannot pretend to say they do not know. All right? Why should people be paying taxes, okay, income taxes, and at the end of the day, they have to still provide for energy to light up their houses? That is another form of taxation. So we have, you know, taxation that we need, the issues of taxation that we need to focus on that the government, I don't think, has actually focused on. And like you rightly said, the drive now is just to increase revenue so that we do not go out borrowing or go cap in hand and begging the Western nations or the Bretton Woods institutions. So when we can fix these leakages, we shall be on the better path of restoring us as a country to the path of economic progress.
Thank you so much, Kenneth. Unfortunately, we were having fun and we ran out of time. But we definitely would love to have you over and over again because you see this matter, you are the perfect guest to continue to have this conversation with. We hope to have you very soon again to bring up this conversation. Thank you again. Thank you, Glory. Now remember, you can follow us across all our social media handles, like, share, invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. If you missed our quote for today, it's a very interesting quote. Where is my quote? It says, the art of taxation consists in so plucking the goose as to obtain the largest amount of feathers with the least possible amount of hissing. It's a serious matter. We'll see you guys on Monday at 8 p.m. as we bring another great conversation to your screen.